Hey guys, welcome back to INC Live and welcome to a very cold northeast of England. It has been snowing non-stop here for the past couple of days. It's a good thing that I had a good UFC event to look forward to. UFC 258 took place overnight. I've just got around to watching the card. With that being said, let's get to the fights. And I think the first fight we need to start with is of course the main event, with Kamaru Usman retaining his belt by a third round stoppage of Gilbert Burns. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of casual fans who are maybe upset by this result. Now, I tried selling the pay-per-view to some of my work colleagues, some of my close friends. They're very much the sort of casual fans who can maybe name like 4 or 5 fighters at most. And when I told them that Kamaru Usman was going to be fighting, the reaction was basically, oh god, not the guy who holds you up against the fence, stomps your feet all the time. So this card was going to be a very hard one to sell to those sort of everyday fans. I don't expect it to do the best pay-per-view numbers. From an entertainment perspective though, I can't fault the match. It was primarily stand-up, good momentum shifts, and great adjustments from Kamaru after a very slow start. Like 30 seconds in, when Gilbert Burns dropped Kamaru Usman, I was one of many people who were pretty much gasping at that moment in time, just thinking, whoa, Gilbert might actually get this done. Because I thought that Kamaru was going to win this fight. I picked him in the pre-fight predictions. So seeing him get dropped 30 seconds in, I got very nervous by that point. I did have a feeling that the fight would be stand-up though. I mentioned in the preview that back at 245, Colby's grappling scared Usman into a stand-up fight. And because Gilbert is such a good jiu-jitsu guy, he could maybe do the same thing. I know that John was maybe a bit more unconvinced than what I was, but I had some hope that the fight would play out like that. And I'm glad that it did. Because there was a moment sort of in the first round where Gilbert was on his back, trying to invite Usman to go into the ground with him. And Usman just stayed where he was kicking him a couple of times. And from that point on, I knew he's going to stand and trade with him. And once he did, he used his jab brilliantly. I think I was surprised that Gilbert didn't show as much durability as what I expected from him. When we saw Colby go 5 hard rounds with Kamaru, taking some big shots, I thought that Gilbert would maybe show something similar to that, but that jab was just causing him so much trouble. Like, it's ironic that we hear all these sort of Usman GSP comparisons, obviously with the welterweight winning streak. That was very similar to what GSP did when he fought Koscheck. Like, Koscheck just had no answer for GSP's jab, and eventually it wore him down. It set up the biggest shots, and ultimately, that was what caused Gilbert's downfall. Gilbert has no shame in the level of performance. And you could see at the end of the fight just how emotional he was. He put a lot into that fight. And if things maybe gone 1 or 2 different ways, he could very well have that welterweight belt. I mean, imagine if he followed up with another big shot after dropping Usman in those final 30 seconds. I'm curious to see what Kamaru Usman does next, especially in terms of fan perception. Now, I have no issue respecting Kamaru as a fighter. Yeah, his style maybe isn't the most fan-friendly, but you win, 13, 14 fights in a row. You break GSP's record for the longest welterweight winning streak. You've got to respect that, even if it's not the most entertaining of styles. But there's still a lot of fans that go off first impressions. And if their first impression is someone holding a fighter against the fence, stomping on their feet for 25 minutes, it's going to take a long time to shift that. Even if you have the great fight against Colby, even if you have this primarily stand-up fight against Gilbert Burns, who is as dangerous as they come, there's people who are still going to think that Usman is just this grinder who holds you up against the fence for 25 minutes. I mean, I remember Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping took a long, long time to win fans over because all they remembered was that young, reckless guy who fought on season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter, slagging everyone off. It can be done. And I think Usman may eventually get to that stage. But that's going to happen after he gets like 7 or 8 title defenses, if he ever reaches that position. I don't think his post-fight interview maybe did him the world of good when he talked to Joe Rogan. I think he came across quite badly there. But then again, you could put that down to adrenaline. He'd fought a very good fight. He was obviously very high on himself. So you can maybe use that as some kind of an excuse. In terms of who his next opponent is, for me, it's no argument. It should be Leon Edwards and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, #1 contender match. but I think the UFC are going to go for something which is a bit more casual friendly. I still see them trying to do something with Khamzat. I think they're going to try and fast track him into a title fight as soon as they possibly can. Get well Silmer as well comes up because we obviously know he's been battling issues. I don't think they're too interested in Leon Edwards. Leon deserves it based off his winning streak, but I don't think they especially like the way that he turns down fights. They see him as maybe a bit dull. So that's not really a fight that they're interested in. I'm hearing rumours that they want to do possibly Masvidal versus Usman 2, which would sell, but I think a lot of the shine has come off Jorge, and I certainly don't think he deserves it over a number of people. Even Colby would deserve a rematch over Usman, in my opinion. All in all, it was a good main event, even if the rest of the card was a bit so-so. It maybe didn't feel as special as what I want from a title fight, but I guess that's obviously with the circumstances that we're in. When you're doing title fights in the Apex, it doesn't feel as grand as what maybe a title fight should, but that's obviously the circumstances that we're in right now. And hopefully, when we get the crowds back, which we're planning to do for 259, or maybe we go to Singapore for 261, which seems to be the plan at the moment, we can maybe get that sort of big title fight atmosphere into events like this. In terms of the rest of the card, the biggest question for me is what do we do about Maycee Barber? Second straight loss up against Alexa Grasso, 29-28 for all the judges' scorecards. I think the first obvious thing to say is that Maycee had this plan to be the youngest ever UFC champion. That's out of the question now. She's got 11 months to do it, and I don't see her even getting close to the top 5 in that short time frame. But that doesn't mean that a top-level career is over. I still saw a lot of upside to her performance. Considering she's, 21, 22 years old, she is strong as an ox. And I loved her heart, I loved her resilience in those late stages of the third round. She realised that she couldn't let Grasso get comfortable with her striking and was really putting the pace on her. She deserved to win that third round. And I think, considering her age, she's also very well-rounded. I mean, you compare her to someone like Chase Hooper, another young protege. You can see that Hooper is fantastic when it comes to grappling, but very limited in the striking. There's a big gulf between how good those two factors of his game is, whereas there isn't really when it comes to Maycee Barber. If there is a limitation though, I do think it's a striking side of thing. I saw when she fought JJ Aldrich that she was getting pieced up by someone who was a lot more technical, so I feared for her sake that she wouldn't be able to get the upper hand on Grasso. I think the UFC maybe need to take a lot of fault in that. I think that there were better options for Maycee Barber's comeback fight than the Alexa Grasso matchup. I would have maybe gone for someone like a Montana De La Rosa or even like a Molly McCann, someone of that sort of ilk, just ease Maycee back into contention. But I think the UFC were thinking it's probably the highest profile beatable contestant who Barber could have. And if she gets through that, you can use that leverage and a pay-per-view co-main, maybe fast track her up the card quicker than what you maybe should be doing on a merits perspective. The other big thing to come out of this, women's flyweight is slowly getting better. Now last year, a match between the 10th and the 15th ranked fighters would have been fairly low level. Yet I think we got a very solid fight out of this. And give it a few more months, we'll have something which is much more UFC worthy, which I've sort of tried to advocate for the flyweight division for a long time. I've seen lots of ridicule about it, a lot of jokes, a lot of memes about its level of quality. It's better than women's bantamweight now, by a long, long way, and it's only going to get better if we get these sort of quality of fights. I think Grasso is a good addition to that top 10, and I think that you add her to the likes of Jessica Andrade, and look at other girls who are coming up through the rankings, a lot of promising, exciting, long flyweight fighters, like Sabina Mazo is another one who I'm very excited about. That division could really rival strawweight if you give it a few more years. Big win as well for Kelvin Gastelum. A lot of people have questions over his top level worthiness. I'm not going to say that he should be fighting the top 5, top 6 guys, but he showed he's more than deserving of being in that top 10, maybe even being that sort of Derek Brunson style gatekeeper that you have to be to show you're worthy of being a title challenger. I think it was more confirmation that Ian Heinisch isn't the top level guy that the UFC maybe tried to paint him out to be. I had questions over whether Heinisch was maybe being fast-tracked a bit too much because of his backstory. Kelvin seemed fairly comfortable in that fight. I don't see the 29-28 that the judges did. Yeah, there were a couple of takedowns for Heinisch late on in that fight, but I think Kelvin felt pretty comfortable. I still think 170 is his best weight class, and I do love how he uses wrestling a lot more. I think maybe he realised, hey, I'm not going to have the one-shot power against these guys in the way that I did, say, when I fought Vitor Belfort or Tim Kennedy, some of those sort of past-hit middleweights. But good performance from Kelvin Gastelum. He definitely needed it. And a lot of people are still high on him after the Adesanya fight. A lot of people maybe fear that a fighter who loses that kind of matchup never gets it right mentally. So I'm glad he answered some of those critics with that performance. 29-28. Great to see Kelvin back on winning form. Marquez and Pitolo was a worthy fight of the night. Both of these guys were quite low profile. It wasn't the most technical match. Amateur at times in places. But a lot of momentum shifts. Great comeback from Marquez. Didn't know what the hell he was talking about in his post-fight interview, but he is getting a date with Miley Cyrus out of it, so can't really fault him. The big coupon buster on that card, though, was Hernandez versus Vieira. Now, it's always a question when these unbeaten fighters face some adversity. I expected Rodolfo to make easy work of this fight. That energy dump, though, was absolutely awful. Now, Joe Rogan was saying on commentary, I can't remember a guy being so tired like that in the first round. I mean, honestly, the first thing that came to mind for me was Mark Coleman. I think it was Mark Coleman versus, Petey Williams. Coleman was just basically gasping for air, just barely moved. He was carrying so much muscle. Well done to Hernandez, though. You can't take anything away from him submitting a jiu-jitsu black belt in the way that he did with the guillotine. I think deserves all the credit in the world. I think there's a lot of betting men who aren't going to be happy about that result, but deserving win for a deserving guy. And hopefully Rodolfo will learn from his mistakes, maybe shed some of that muscle, and can come back a better fighter for it. All in all, though, I thought UFC 258 was pretty solid. If it had been a fight night, I wouldn't have had any issue with it. Some entertaining fights, great performances on the card, but paying $60, $70 for it, like I would have done in America, would have been maybe a bit too much for me. I did raise a lot of fears, if you follow me on social media, about the quality and the depth of the matches. And of course, we had 2 more fights fall through. COVID reasons in some cases. Bobby Green passed out. Gillian Robertson was unable to compete. So you were left with 10 fights on that card. And when you look at how stacked UFC 259 is, you could have taken some of the fights from that card and used it to back up Usman versus Burns, which I don't expect to do all that well in the pay-per-view because of the reputations and the lower profiles of those guys. I think the UFC took a big chance with shortchanging this card, and it very nearly backfired on them because 10 fights on a pay-per-view isn't enough for me. The fights we actually got, very entertaining. But can I say it was better than UFC 257? I can't. I do hope, though, that the next card coming up, Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis, more than makes up for that one. That's going to be my next post-fight reaction show. I hope you tune in for that one. My name's been Karl Bainbridge. This has been the INC. Thank you for watching. Continue to support the channel and support It's Not Cagefighting, the full father channel. We've got some great videos coming up, which I'm really looking forward to getting to. This has been the INC. Thank you for watching.